Furry Christmas. It's furry Christmas. But people buying pets for Christmas, particularly tenants or people buying pets in a strata block, can strata say no? Can your landlord say no? Stay tuned.
Good morning, Mark. I can't even blame that one on auto spelling. That was a genuine mistake. Let's just say I don't
Furry Christmas?
Don't talk about my furries too much.
Furry. You drunk too much on the weekend at the under 30s Novak function.
Well and truly. Yeah. But this is an interesting topic, because if you're considering getting a furry friend for Christmas, he needs to be on Santa's good list before he's welcomed at the block.
Be careful. Be careful. And I guess as even not just tenants, but even owner occupiers, if you're going into a strata scheme, well, even if you're not, even if you're an owner occupier and you're going to a terrace or a house and it's upsetting neighbours, you've got to be careful.
Well, that's sort of where this morning's topic came from. My mum and I were talking about it at home, and we recently, moved houses and purchased in a strata scheme. The first time we've lived in that type of setup, and we have a little dog, and we just thought naturally you just move the dog in. You could move whatever you want in, but if you're a big family and have all these different pets, you really need to make sure you know what you're getting yourself into, because the pets are just as important as the family these days.
You know what? Pet ownership's gone bananas. I think COVID, because people are home a lot more, they've thought, they didn't want to get a pet because they were never home. They were always in the office, but that's changed. So pet ownership, I know what you're paying for some of these dogs out there. You're paying double or triple than what you're paying 2 years ago. So pet ownership has gone absolutely bananas, and the laws have changed on it as well.
Yeah, and quite recently as well, Mark. Without getting too much into the nitty-gritty and laws, in summary, the laws really do focus around the strata scheme as a whole, and making sure that pets are not interfering with others' peace and sort of use of the common property in general. So if you're getting a furry friend, you need to be talking to your agent with some notice. So with 13th of December today, you almost need to be having that conversation now, because there is a little bit of a process in getting the paperwork through, and making sure that it's approved properly, because we've seen some absolute disasters where people have had to move out of the property because they didn't get their pet approved, and they decided to go through with purchase anyway.
And look, I think some people are Google ninjas, and if you go online and have a look at some of the recent legislation, there has been some fundamental changes to cases, one behind the other, over a 1 year period, and those cases have actually under a companionship. They've sort of really pressed that point that stratas cannot say no. Strata schemes, which is when you're living in a unit or a townhouse, they can't say no, but there's still some really common sense stuff that does apply that can limit your pet or can restrict your pet that you've got to be sure about, that we'll talk about now.
Yeah, that's right. Luke said don't buy a barking dog or a cat. That's the easiest way to do it.
Yep. That's probably the biggest problem. That's probably the biggest problem is, and it's not about pets, it's just about livability, because even if you've got a neighbour that's playing music unnecessarily loud or disrupting the peace of the neighbourhood, they're going to get chucked out as well, or they're going to get fined by council over and over, or police for noise pollution parties or whatever. So it's really just that common sense approach where you just really want to respect your neighbours.
Yeah, without a doubt. But majority of pet applications that we do process is taken or is done with common sense, like you said. A lot of people are not really here to spoil your day. However, there is a process. So talk with your agent. You need to be getting the paperwork through. Now, just so people know, the decisions are often made on factors like the size of the dog, or if it's a dog we're talking about, that's most common we see. But the size of the dog is taken into account, breed, obviously, and then where your unit sits in the block. Is there other dogs, other pets in the block? There's lots of little factors that contribute.
And also, I think there's it's part of managing relationships as well. So, as a prospective tenant, giving the landlord the courtesy of the question, of the time to assess, giving them good information to make an assessment. I just think making them part of that decision process will also help as well. To sort of find out that there's a barking dog that you knew nothing about, I think really puts a landlord off, completely, and even neighbours. So I think just some good old fashioned common courtesy of heads up, is what the pet is. Talk to your neighbours around you, talk to your landlord, talk to your agent. And like you said, if you're going to be buying one for Christmas, which is 12 days away, you want to be doing it now.
Yeah. It does take a little while to get it through. Strata asked for a pretty comprehensive document to be filled out, actually, with council numbers, registration, breed, size, weight, even a couple of photos in there, Mark, just so they know what's going on, who's where.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but that's the story of this morning. Are you intending on getting any furry friends this year? I suppose you can't say. Kids are watching.
Nah, we've got little Shih Tzu Maltese, and the girls have insisted he needs a friend, but I insist he doesn't need a friend. But that's also changed, that people are not happy with one pet these days. They want to go over to 2 or 3. They want a cat, they want a second dog or a second cat, or it's used to pets. I think pet ownership's definitely exploded. If you look at places like Pet Barn, and those sort of places, people spend a fortune for these pets. It's just out of control. But I think the framework around it for real estate agents and for rental properties has definitely gotten better. And for strata, I think the framework around having a pet's definitely got it better. And you know what? Genuinely, under the companionship rule, it really, to some people, it probably sounds unusual, but these are like children to some singles or couples. Like they represents people's absolute lives. So I think it's good that framework under companionship rule is now there and available for people, because the necessity wasn't there previously. People didn't care as much to have a pet or not have a pet, but it's super critical for some people now.
Yeah. We've also seen some really good success in, Mark, is people applying for properties saying that they intend to get a pet. They don't at the moment already have a pet, but this is almost just letting the landlord know with a heads up that that's their intentions. And when the landlord accepts that application, they almost know down the line that's what they're going to plan to do. And so we recently had an application go through for a property in Narrabeen where they were looking at getting a little greyhound, and landlord had no problem with it. And it was a few months down the line afterwards that it ended up going through. And once you got ticked off by Strata, it was all happy days.
And that's it. So, furry friends for Christmas, get ready. It's definitely happening with a lot of people out there. People are whacking them in. Have the professional courtesy with your landlord. Have the professional courtesy with your neighbours. Have the professional courtesy with your agent, and just let everyone know and give them some good quality information to process. And it just softens that landing so much more, and that sort of frustration for the people that are involved.
That's it. They make
Yeah,
good friends.
Jeff Luby's got a good buddy that goes to all of his open houses. Actually, he takes his dog to open houses and everything. What's your fur baby called, Jeff? Yeah, but it's amazing. Like, seriously, a lot of people. Now, you mentioned something about allergies, Billy. Like, there's some landlords based on allergies have successfully said no to having pets in their property.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely reasons for both sides, whether you're for or against. But I think the way to go about it, Mark, is just to be open with your communication. Some tenants, you've got to remember, you did apply for the property with no pet, and if that's the owner's position, then they're obviously going to have reasons for that. So I think the best way to go about it is just to write an email with your intentions, and if you're taking it on from a family member or something like that, get some photos where you can, but don't make the decision before you've got the approval, because like I said, we've just seen some really bad examples of where it's gone terribly wrong.
And don't forget, a landlord may not decline you on your pet, but they may simply ask you to move out of the property. So that rapport, or that open and good quality communication is just very, very important. Do you know what I mean? Just to work a landlord through that process, super important. Jeff's little baby is Sasha, and Lisa reckons the kids are surprising me with a pet for Christmas. Yeah, right.
That I don't know if that's a present to you, Mark, or a curse.
One pet's enough for our family, I reckon. More than enough.
Yeah, like you say, some people just don't know where to stop.
I don't know. And by the way, just before we sign off, there can be a mutual agreement to get some carpet cleaning done at the end of the tenancy, when the tenancy finishes, to clean up after the pet as well. That's reasonable to ask.
Yeah, and it's worth noting for any landlord that's not sure, with all of our pet applications and approvals, if it's not in the lease at the start, there's a special clause added in where there's an agreement to have the carpets professionally steamed and fumigated at the end of the tenancy. So that sort of covers any like I said, if you're worried about allergies or things like that, that sort of covers that. If you're intending to move back into the property or to relet the property to some more tenants afterwards.
And that is a show. Thank you very much, Billy.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks to all our furry friends.
Good luck with your furry friends. Good spelling, Billy.
Have a great Christmas.
See ya. Bye.
Well.